we live not far from the main road in East Union, and so we were listening, hearing all of the commotion. They were hollering and carrying on and things like that. And so my mother wanted to walk down to the street, and I didn't want to go because I was expecting a baby, and you didn't get out in public in those days, and you stayed pretty close in. And my mother asked me to go with her, and I said, no, I'm afraid that somebody will laugh at me. And she said she was already perturbed on account of all the going on. She said, they better not anybody laugh at you. Well, if they laughed, I didn't hear them, so that was all right. But anyway, you've never heard such fussing, such hollering, such carrying on in your life. And then that night, a lot of them that were for the Union, now I don't know whether this is pertaining to what you want to hear or not, but a lot of them that were for the Union, they all got them sticks and things like that. And across the pond, there was a pond over there, not far from the mill. So they stayed on that side of the pond all night, the crowd of the men. And of course, being young, we were frightened. We didn't know what was going to take place. Well, that went on. I don't remember exactly how long it went on, for several days, because I wasn't working, and I can't remember that much about it. But I do remember when it was over. I don't know if that would apply to what you want to hear or not. Well, I never will forget Carl Nixon was, I believe he was superintendent then, and several of the, main men in the business part of it were down near the mill and met on the outside, met at a bridge right there on East Union Road. And a lot of the people came by, well, just the whole village, you might say, gathered up. And they come to tell them that anybody that wanted to go back to work could go back to work. And if they didn't tell them right then that they wanted to go, they didn't have a job. Well, I can remember particularly one man, I won't call a name, but he had a stick just about that big around in his hand. And he stood there and he looked so pathetic. And he was kind of a boss man. And when they told him, says, now you can come back to work, all of you have a job that want to work. And I can just see that stick just sliding out of his hand just as easy, and it hit the ground. And so a lot of them that day went on, said then they would go back to work. But some of them didn't, and they gave them a few days. They had a certain limited time. They had to go back within those days if they did go to work. And some of them went back, and some of them never got a job there anymore. And I remember that when they left, I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe when they left Union, they went to Columbus. I know when they left East Union that they were headed some other place, and I believe it was either LaGrange or Columbus, somewhere down. Those that was on the buses, on the cars and all, the strikers, we called them the strikers, And it was just, well, it was scary, because you hated to say anything that would offend your friends and neighbors, and you really couldn't be yourself because you didn't know if I were talking to somebody. You couldn't say, are you for the Union? Because it wasn't, you just didn't feel like that was any business, just come plain out and ask them. So therefore, you didn't know how to relate to them. And it was just a sad time. It was sad for the children because they know their parents didn't know which way to turn. And times were hard then. And so if you didn't have a job, you knew you didn't have anything else. And so it was just hard times all along. But there was a lot that went on that wasn't nice. There wasn't any killings or anything like that. But mostly it was hard feelings. And I don't remember of anybody getting physically hurt. But I do remember that the men carried the sticks, and other people were afraid to go by. The children were even afraid to walk by those people that had the sticks, and they wouldn't have hurt them. But those sticks meant something.
Were they the picker sticks?
Yes, the ones that was for the one that was for the Union.
Yeah, they used the picker
Uh-huh.
sticks. Yeah, that's what I've heard about.
Yeah. And
This is very exactly what we want to do. You told it, and I think you told it very well. So that's just when we come back again with the cameras, that's exactly what you'd like to have me see. And Father, she should wear that same color, shouldn't she?
Oh, Lord.
Isn't that nice?
beautiful.
Oh,
The
goodness.
pink is so nice with your hair.
Oh, my
That'd be
goodness.
very nice.
Thank you.
So we'll be back, see, either Wednesday afternoon or Thursday, won't it?
I have to go to the doctor Wednesday afternoon.
Okay.
I think I have a skin
Okay.
cancer that I'm going to have removed.
Oh, yes, that's...
That I guess you see that
yeah,
grease on
yeah,
my face.
yeah.
I went this morning and I've got he said it might be a skin cancer and I'm having to keep that on it
Yeah.
twice a day.
Good.
Do you recall when
Well, this reached my stove. Can you? You know, if my husband been living, he could tell you a lot more than I can about this, the strikers and the union, because I wasn't working at that time, and all I knew was just what I would hear, you know, and the people that the neighbors and the friends talking.
Do you have any pictures of the time?
No, I certainly don't.
Yeah, because we're looking for some.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some. We got some newsreels.
If you can get in touch with Roy Calhoun, he lives out at East Newnan. He lives, when you see East Newnan Baptist Church, he lives right in front of it. He's in his 80s. I'm sure he can tell
Well,
you.
now, we have a videotape
Mm-hmm.
of the women who got, put in Fort McPherson. Did you hear about that?
Well, I remember, but I just barely remember that.
What we could do when we come back is that we can we'll have a little machine, we put it on your television set, and you may be able to recognize some of them.
I might be.
Yeah.
If any of them were from,
There were 120.
126 from Noonan?
that were put in the,
Yeah, 16 women and the rest were men.
mm-hmm.
But you may.
Yeah, I probably would. I've just,
Sure.
I was right, along about then, I was raising boys. I had 3 boys in 4 years, so I
Wow.
had my hands full.
How old were you?
How was I then?
Yeah.
I was 24.
Huh. Yeah.
Now I'll be 80, my birthday.
Another incredible stuff. Look, we won't ask you to show your birth certificate. We've been through
We'll
that.
believe you.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, my youngest child is 53. My oldest one is 57.
Oh, goodness. Yow. That's wonderful.
Was your husband working in the mill at the time?
Yes, that's why I say, had he been living, he could tell you a lot about it that I can't, because I wasn't working in the mill, you know.
Were you living in
Well, I was living at East Newnan then.
That's in the mill village?
At the mill
Is
village.
that still around?
Yes, but it's not East Newnan Mill anymore. It's, well, I think Shaw Industries may have it now. But anyway,
Is that where Washington Street, East Washington Street is, that area?
no, honey, this is out about 3 miles out of town. It's east of Newnan. That's why it's called East Newnan. It's a mill village. But after my husband, we were living there, and my husband went in service in World War II. He had to go in the Navy when he was 34 years old. I had a 12-year-old, 11-year-old, and a 7-year-old.
Good. Huh.
And so when he got back out of the Navy, he and his brother went into a grocery store. We started a grocery store there at the mill village. And so that's where he retired. Well, he didn't retire. He died. We had just built a new store 4 years before he died. He just went like that one night after he got up at the supper table. So if you go to East Newnan on the main road, you'll see a little store sitting there, and that's one that my husband and me built.
I was over in that village about a year ago
Were you?
and talked to some people over there
Uh-huh.
at the time.
Well, you may have talked to Roy Calhoun.
No, I didn't.
Well, he-
Just casual talk.
Yeah.
But the thing that surprised me was that they made so many changes in the houses that
Oh.
it hardly looked like a village anymore.
Well, you know, when we were living there, Mr. D.M. Wood was superintendent. And everybody kept their places nice and clean. And, I mean, it was a nice, good place to live, good people. But now, see, the mill village sold the houses. Now, we left there in 1945. I've been in Newnan since 1945. And they sold the houses, And a lot of people that rents just let them go anyway.
Have you been over there recently?
Yes.
Because the thing that struck me, that at least of the 2 streets I went down, was how nice the people had fixed up.
Well, now that street that the church is on, this
Yeah.
man lives right in front of the
Yeah.
church
Huh.
that I'm telling you about. And he has a nice place, and petunias are all over his yard.
But I noticed several of them, very nice.
Yes, they are well kept. Yeah, I had my husband had bought some houses down there, and we had one. He had bought one right at the church, and after he died, I sold it to one of his sisters, and her husband still live there.
Did his sisters work in the mill too?
They did a long time ago, but after they, got married and grew up, she left there and worked in a place, Bonnell. I guess you've heard of that here in Union. Then she left Bonnell and she married and went to Texas. And her husband died there, and she came back to Union. And her husband now, she's married again, and he runs the big machinery. He does a lot of the heavy work on the streets and the roads and things like that.
And was she living down here in 34 as well?
Mm-hmm.
Now, by the time you built the store, though, the mill had closed down, hadn't it?
A mill from Alabama, Mount Vernon, after Eastern Union, after Eastern Union sold it. They sold it to Mount Vernon. I mean, Union Cotton Mills, rather. They sold it to Mount Vernon, and then Mount Vernon, I believe, sold it to another company that I can't remember the name of, and then West Point Pepperell from down in the valley bought it.
That's right, yeah.
And that's when we had our store there on the street. Now, the first store we had was over across the pond, if you know where the pond is.
Well, I saw
You
it when I
wasn't,
was there before,
yeah.
but I don't remember.
Well, we were on that side, and we was in a store over there for several years, and then we came over on the other side near the church. Right where the church is sitting, where it is, we're just right out the streets where our store was.
I think we should go see him.
Roy McCoy.
Yeah.
Roy,
Calhoun.
Yeah.
Roy Calhoun.
Can we call him?
You can, yes, you can.
Okay.
Just leave it running.
You want me to take this off?
No,
No, you talk. I see the Noonan phone.
Uh-huh.
I was wondering if the churches took any part in all of this.
I wouldn't think so. As well as I remember, they did. It was just something. If they found out in the mill that you were for the union, you were just miserable. Most people that were for it kept it to themselves, and then somebody, like I said a while ago, then somebody would find it out, and then it would cause some trouble, quarreling.
We've just been working over.
You know what? Excuse me again. I don't seem to. It's Calhoun. Calhoun. Doesn't seem to be in.
Let's see, honey. I believe this is. You got the back of the book. You don't have Noonan there.
This isn't
Noonan is in the front.
Oh. Oh. Aha. Okay. Oh, I'm so glad. Okay. Excuse me. There you go.
We were
Turn
over,
on that light if you want
We
to.
were over at Cabbagetown in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Which is old, and they were describing the kind of, we're picking up the
Uh-huh.
same kind of thing. It's the division in the town, but still people remember.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Still people.
My daddy was working there. We left the farm in Carroll County. He was always a farmer, and he didn't ever like anything but the farm. But the last year we were on the farm, the boll weevils and the hail got our crops. And that's why we were at a mill village.
That again, I'd like to tell you, because we want to demonstrate why people came into the mills.
Mhm.
Very often they didn't want to,
Yeah.
but they just had to.
Yeah, that's exactly why we came there, because
So we've got it, and I'll just ask you next time. My son will be the cameraman, and
Yeah.
North Carolina. I said, tell him what you told me.
yeah.
Because that's important. Because a lot of people don't understand how strong the hold of the land was on those people.
See, my husband's father was a Baptist minister, and he had 12 children, and the boys always worked the farm, And my daddy loved the country, and he would have never thought of leaving the country. But that year, it was a bad year for boll weevils. It was 19 and 26.
Oh, right.
19 and 26.
That's what chased out, I think, several of the big farmers. I was doing a history of Greene County,
Uh-huh.
and that's what chased a lot of them out. That
Yeah.
last year,
Mhm.
many other, a couple of fellows there left, went to California, started working in the Imperial Valley,
Mhm.
made enough money to come back and buy their places back.
Mhm.
But then they put it in the cattle. They
Yeah.
didn't try cotton again. But Carroll County was one of my favorite places.
Yeah, Carroll County was good farming country.
I remember bringing a fellow from New York down. Part of my job was to show these reporters from
Mhm.
the North about what the government was doing with these
Yes.
farmers. And it was in late November,
Hello, Mr.
and it was cotton. It was hog killing time. They'd never seen that country before. Every place we went, they were killing hogs,
Mhm.
and making sausage.
Yeah.
All that kind of
Yeah.
thing. It was fascinating. And seeing it through there.
Uh-huh.
And he came here to talk to Opal about cotton mills in the 30s. And she mentioned that you of all people would have a lot to say about working in the mills in the 30s. And she thought that maybe we could come by and talk with you.
Tell him I said he could remember about the strike better than I could.
Well, I'm sure if we sat down and talked together, we'd have a lot to talk about and your memory would stand. I'll tell you one thing that we're interested in right now, and we're talking to Opal about, and was about that big strike that happened in '34. And she thought you'd have a lot to remember about that.
If he just would, he could tell you a lot, I'm sure.
Could you think we could come by and just chat for a little while? Maybe later this afternoon? You have some time today? Okay. You are. Well, why don't we come by when you're finished? We wouldn't want to interrupt you, sir. How about in an hour? Would that be okay? Okay. Now you, according to the phone book, you live on Freeman Street. Correct? According to the phone book, your address is Freeman Street. 2E.
He and my husband are first cousins.
Okay. Well, we'll be coming from downtown.
And he's in his 80s.
Okay. And
He's a
I
few years
guess I'll
older
give
than I am.
directions. Can you give me a
And
landmark?
and two, he was working at the mill
Do you
then.
know where this place is?
Uh-huh.
No,
You know where
sir,
the church,
but
you know
I'll
how to
have
get to the
find it.
church?
No, I don't. I'll have to get
Yes. Okay. Uh-huh. Yeah.
What, this is just documentary,
Mhm.
it's your,
It's going to be for public television.
oh yeah.
Okay, so I come down East Broad Street, and at the four-way
The Humanities
stop sign,
Councils of Georgia
I make
South and
what
North
turn, a
Carolina.
right turn?
Mhm.
and Tennessee
Okay.
are all working together.
Yeah. That's interesting, isn't it?
It's fascinating to me. I grew up in North Carolina.
A store.
I was born and grew up in North
Which store?
Carolina,
Uh-huh.
Chapel Hill, and then
Oh yeah.
made a lot of films around the South.
Oh, that's nice.
Even though I teach at New York University.
Uh-huh.
You teach now?
That's right. But
Okay.
I made a lot of films
Uh-huh.
here. And I keep trying to make films as well as teach because it keeps me from meddling with my students' films too much. You know?
Keeps them from knowing more than you do.
It's the truth. Because
These days, the young
Well,
people
were you
can
working
really.
there in
Well,
1934?
one of the things the methods change so quick. I
Okay.
mean, methods I used in the
Mhm.
50s.
Yeah.
Well, we'll come down and talk with you then in about an
It's a
hour.
whole different.
I know.
Okay,
A
and
different
so-
world.
Yeah.
East Broad Street.
I mean, we use
turns
videotape
into,
now. You know, it's all
your
filmed
street.
before. The lights. When we
I
went,
come
used to
down
go
East
out. I
Broad
used to work
Street,
out of
there's a
Athens,
four-way stop sign,
Georgia.
turn right, and then I
And
come down the
to
street,
light, just a little
past
place
the
like
store,
that, make a whole
I
station
stay
light
right,
full of lights.
and
Yeah.
pass
Now we can do
two
it.
right street, two right turn, past
It's
two
so
streets, Street.
Well, where is your home now?
I live in New York now.
Oh,
I was
do
a
you?
teacher
Oh,
at
yeah.
New York
Mhm.
University. But,
Cross Railroad, yeah.
no, I like to come down.
Mhm.
This is the first time Judy's been south.
Oh, that is yours.
Yeah.
That's your daughter or
No,
granddaughter?
she's a former student.
Oh, well, good.
And it's fascinating because
I
I see
guess
things,
so.
new things through her eyes.
Yes.
Oh, yes, sir.
The other day, we were out near Columbus,
Second
Phoenix City,
house on
And-
left.
interviewing an old
Okay, and your
two colored
street
gentlemen.
is
She
Freeman
worked for the
Street.
Mhm.
She got a yellow jacket sting.
All right, thank
oh,
You know
you.
how that works.
yes.
Got a cure for that. Came in town, came back with his Prince Albert tobacco, chewed it up, put it on.
Oh my goodness.
I don't even have a scar.
I can tell you another. I can tell you another ribbon that the South has.
Okay.
You know, there are people that use snuff. They call it dipping snuff. You've heard of dipping snuff? I have seen older ladies when I was a child, if something stung them, they'd
Same thing.
Oh, since they were chewing it, they just happened to have it.
they didn't, you know, they don't, well, they call it dipping.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like tobacco. It's a powdery substance. Put it in the lip. Honey, you missed a lot not growing up in the South.
Probably did. Probably did.
You know,
But I'm catching up. In 1 month, I've learned all sorts of things. I
had
learned
you
how to
ever
cook.
read the Carwell feller's books of God's Green Acre and what is his other?
Erskine Caldwell.
Erskine Carwell?
Tobacco Road.
Well, listen, we don't live far from where they put in his. They moved his birthplace. They cut the house in three different well, how should I say it? Rooms. Anyway, it was just a small house, and I guess it's about 3 rooms. And they put it down at Moreland, Georgia. And his wife has been down to Moreland, Georgia. 4th of July, they have a big to-do. That's not far from here, about 6 or 8 miles. And so they're making a museum out of his. You know, he was the author of God's Green Acre, wasn't he?
No, God's Little Acre.
God's Little Acre. That's right. And what was the one that caused so much confusion in the South? He had another one.
You Have Seen Their Faces.
No, that's not it. I can't.
Tobacco Road.
Tobacco Road. That's it.
Yeah.
A lot of people in the South fell out with him because of the book Tobacco
That's why I'm
Road.
surprised that they're turning it into a museum.
Oh, they just thrilled to death. His wife was here. She lives in the States. I can't think of where it is. But anyway, I went down to we have a barbecue once a year down at Moreland. A 4th
Tell me
of July.
something. Moreland, is it nearby here?
Yes. It's, I believe it's about 9 miles. When you get on Highway 29 over here, it leads you right into Moreland.
Because we heard that there was going to be a convention of some kind of textile, of
Old mill workers
old mill workers.
in Moreland.
Well, I haven't heard about that, but I do know that they had this, they moved this old manse, they called it, you know, his birthplace, moved that there this week.
Moreland had a lot of mills working at the same time. that
Moreland
we-
had a hosier mill. Moreland didn't have a cotton mill. Moreland had a hosier mill.
Oh. I see.
And now, Moreland has this, they have turned it into, they have a lot of old things that you can see there. Every 4th of July, they have
They turned
people.
the mill into something, didn't they?
Yes, and we go every 4th of July. They have a big barbecue, and they cook 2,500 pounds of meat this time, and it went just like that. A lot of people didn't get served.
Good.
Did you?
And they have a dance, yes. I dance too. They have a dance down there.
Country dance.
Mm-hmm.
Live music?
Yes,
Oh, that sounds like fun.
it is.
Square dance?
A lot of them square dance. I always act like the kids, you know. I get out there and do the Charleston and such as that. I didn't do it this time. I had to have a pacemaker put in last year. That's all that kept me from it.
Well, he says we could come by in about an hour, which
Okay.
is perfect because we're on our way to visit Led Bennett.
Oh, Lab Bennett, that's another
You're the
good
You
one.
told me about him. Didn't
No,
you?
I didn't, but he's a good one. I know him. He's a special friend of mine.
He is.
Uh-huh. He lives on Temple Avenue.
East Broad Street.
I mean on East Broad Street.
Okay.
Maybe she'd call him up.
I am going to call him up and
Okay.
tell him why we're since you're a special friend, maybe he'll understand.
Yeah, his wife and me, and well, he was at the
Maybe you
same.
want to say hello.
Huh?
Maybe you want to say hello. Would you like to?
Oh no, we not that. You know.
Oh,
I-
you're not that.
Well, it's he and his wife and me all good friends.
Busy.
In fact, he was at the same church I go to. I saw him last Sunday a week ago.
I didn't realize they turned Moreland into a kind of museum place.
Yeah, that the old mill. They have. They got several different things in there, and they gradually, increase it. And I think maybe what you're thinking about, it's time for the Powers Cross Road. You've heard of that, hadn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Festival. That comes up in September. But Lab was working at the old mill. They called the Newnan Cotton Mill old mill. That one that I worked in was East Newnan.
Mm-hmm.
But they were owned by the same companies. So I've been living here 7 years. 7 years ago, I owned my own home, and I decided to sell it and move into an apartment.
Mr. Bennett? Hi, this is Judy Hilton.
So I found my nick right here. I like it.
Certainly is a nice
How you
place.
It is.
My sister
Yeah? Did you
in
take
San
all that stuff out on
Francisco,
the lawn?
moved into a retirement.
Did
Did
she?
you make any
And
sales?
at first we thought, oh.
Did you make any sales?
But she's very happy with it.
Yeah, that's what my sons were afraid of, that I wouldn't, might not like.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been well
I'm
satisfied.
at Opal McMichael.
It's a big
You know
help to
Opal.
her.
Yes.
And to us,
Opal
because it's
McMichael?
way at San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm at her place right now. We got held up at the library.
We're not worried
We came
about.
here because it was on the way.
Because there's always
We could stop
somebody
by
there.
for a little while on our way
If she has an
past your house.
emergency.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be okay?
That's a big help.
Yeah.
She's 80.
Well, now, see, we have 911 here, and every morning I get a call at 8 o'clock. This is 911 calling. Are you
Well, look,
okay?
we won't take up more than
And if
10,
you're
12
not okay,
minutes of
hang up your
time.
phone and dial
Sit outside
911. If
on
you
the
are
porch. We can
okay,
even help
just
you
hang
move
up your
some
phone
things,
and
if
have a
that's
good
okay.
day. Every morning.
Well, we're going to leave right now, and we're not far. We're on Bunyan Court, and that's not far from you. From my instructions, it's not too far
It isn't.
to East Broad Street.
Yeah, it's I didn't
Well,
know
sir, like I said,
what a
we're
comfort
doing
it
a
was going to be until.
documentary project
Because
about
we're
the
scattered.
textile
Yes.
We've got one
industry
sister
in
in
the
Washington, one
1930s.
sister in Myrtle Beach.
Oh,
And,
I love Myrtle Beach. I go there vacation. I like to go to Myrtle Beach.
She
well,
and her
maybe we
husband
could just sit down and talk
daughters,
just for a little bit. We'll see
well,
what
their
we
daughters
can
are in
remember.
Asheville and down in Florida.
Okay.
But
Okay,
she's
well,
been
we'll
there
come
since
right now. Okay.
1946.
Then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
He's really snowed under. He's
Okay.
planning a garage sale.
okay,
So,
okay. Well, maybe we'll get the bargains. We'll go ahead.
Oh, he does woodwork too. He used to make little baby things.
we might just have to help him move some things.
Don't. It might hurt it. Ah,
Oh.
Yeah, good. Well, this is great fun.
Well, I'm enjoying it.
And he had never seen any fire because they had furnace heat. And I'd have to crack the eye on that little stove,
Oh, and he could look in.
let him see it. And I'd think he was about asleep, and I'd shut it up, and he'd jump up.
All right, sir. Tell us why you came to Nina.
I'm going to tell you all of it.
Okay.
I tell you, that was back in the year when they had the boll weevil on. They ate up our crop for 3 years. I was 18 years old, and I hadn't had any money. We had plenty to eat. We had a hog. We had chicken, and we raised peanuts, potatoes. We had a good living, but didn't have any money. And I was getting to be about 18 years old. I hadn't had any money. And I wanted some money so bad. So me and my father was plowing up there in the field, and I told him, I said, Dad, we won't never make anything down here. We've been 7 or 8 years now. In 3 years we hadn't cleared a dime. And I'm going somewhere and find me a job. Well, he didn't much want me to go, naturally he didn't. So I went home, I told my mother, I said, Mother, I'm fixing to leave. She said, where are you going? I don't know. I'm going to hunt me a job. I want some money. I hadn't had any money in so long. I'm going to hunt me a job. I said, get me up some clothes. She got me up a two-piece suit. Two-piece suit, that's all I had. Pair of overalls and a shirt. So she put them in a little paper bag, and so I walked to Newton up here 16 miles up a dirt road. Didn't have a dime in my pocket, not the first one. Didn't know where I was going to spend the night or anything, but I had a feeling, you know, that I was going to make some money before I went back home. So I went up Greenville Street over here, and I saw a man and his son working out there on Greenville Street cutting grass, trimming hedge and stuff like that. I knew them. They said, hey, Roy, where you going? I said, I don't know. I'm just hunting me a job. I said, I hadn't had any money in 3 years, and I'm going to try to find me a job and make me some money. They talked to each other a little bit and said, well, you can help us if you'd like to. They were working in the yard, you know. And he said, I said, well, he said, we could pay you about, I don't know where it's 20 or 30 cents an hour, and I'd worked all day for 75 cents on the farm, sun up or sundown. I thought that was pretty good, you know. So I started working with him. I said, well, one more thing. I got to have a place to spend the night. And I'd had to have something to eat too, you know. They talked to each other again, and they said, I tell you what, said, you work with us, and you can stay, we'll board you. I said, well, how much will the board cost me? Said, we'll board you for $1.50 a week. And I said, well, I believe I'll take that. So I did, and I worked for them, I don't know, a month or two, and I don't know exactly why I left, but had a big peach orchard right over here, big peach orchard, and I knew the people there. So I went down one day and asked them, you know, if they'd give me a job in the orchard. They said, sure would. And they showed me how to pick peaches, and I picked peaches. And so when the season was over, you know, it's over in a little while, see. Another fellow asked me that worked over here in the plant. I said, well, where are you going now, Roy? I don't know. I got hunting a job somewhere. He said, I believe I can get you a job in the plant over here in the mill. What do they do over there? Oh, they make thread and all that kind of stuff. Said, I might could get you a job. And said, we work over there. I said, well, see if you can. Well, he talked to me the next day and said, I got you a job over there in the mill. Well, I went in over there, and they put me to work in the twister room.
They don't know what that is.
You don't know what that is, but somebody will if you hear me talking. And so they put me, I was tall, you know, taking this thread off, you know, that had been way over, you know. They decided I was too tall for that, to put me creeling, you know, putting this, racking all this thread and stuff up there, see. Well, I worked on for them, and they paid me $9 for 60 hours. $9 for 60 hours. And after I learned that job pretty good, I went on up to 11.55. I was going on up. And so then I got a job operating the machines, and $15.85. And then they raised me on up. Then they started a night line over there. And I knew some of the fellas, and they were going to get on it because they'd make $20.20 for 60 hours. So I got on that with them. And I worked there a good long while. And then I asked Mr. Wood, the superintendent, I said, Mr. Wood, how about letting me get on the outside? I said, I don't like this in here too good. I said, let me go on the outside. We'll see about it. Well, the boss come around and said, you go down the outside and report to the man machine shop. Said, we're going to let you go down there. So I went down there, and they put me to work there, and I looked after these houses here, electrical part and the plumbing, you know. I was all over the place. And so later on, they put me in machine shop regular, see. And so I worked for them for 12 years in the machine shop over there. and I lived in this house right here. But if I moved, I lost my job. I had to stay here if I worked there. Well, I worked over there, wasn't making nothing much, about $1.20 or $1.30 an hour or something like that then, because I was getting rich then, you know, and making that much money.
This was in the 50s then?
Yeah, and so, well, I worked on, you know, and they sold this place. I had enough money to buy it. I bought it and paid for it when I got it.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason I'm here right now.
That's good.
I've been living here a long time. And another man told me one time, I fished with him a lot, he said, you'll never amount to nothing working the cotton mill. He said, why don't you come on to help us? They was fooling the scrap barn and everything like that. We was on the river, going upriver. I said, John, one of these days, I'm going to work over that long enough, I'm going to have $10,000. He said, you'll never do it, work the cotton mill. Never do it. No way. He said, you work in the cotton mill, you'll never have nothing. I said, I'm going to try it. When I moved from right here, I had my brand new Dodge. I paid for this house and had more than $10,000 in money working over there.
Good, nice.
So I did. But
He
brother,
was frugal though.
but brother, I tell you, I ate a lot of butter beans and peas and stuff.
Do you remember when the NRA came in?
Oh yeah,
Tell us about that.
WPA, wasn't it?
Well, there was a WPA, but NRA came in that raises the wages in the
And
mill.
40
Oh,
hours.
No,
yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, at that time, I never will forget the foreman over this plant, another plant up here too, Mr. Field, R.A. Field. We was painting their office up there, me and another fellow. Mr. Field came around there and he said, well, boy, he said, looks like we're going to have to go on 40 hours whether we like it or not. You know what that man working for, he's pretty vulgar, you know. He said, like it hell. Said, I'm going to like it, I know. So we didn't tell Mr. Field that, you know, but work got so bad after then, there wasn't no work to do. I didn't have anything to do. I was working 2 or 3 days when I could get a job, you know. I painted in town. I painted that Methodist church up there in town, me and another fellow.
So the work got cut.
Oh, it got to where we didn't have anything to do. And
Everywhere it was like
it's
that.
like that. It wasn't just right here. I went up there and I told Mr. Field I had $750 left, you know. So I went up there and told Mr. Field one day, I said, Mr. Field, I said, I'm just about spent out, and I need something to do. He said, well, I'll tell you, he said, I think maybe I might could get you a job. Said, come back tomorrow. I was going to get another fellow to help me, a good painter. And so I talked to this fellow and said, yeah, it'd help me. I went up there the next day and said, well, I'll tell you about that thing. He said, it's not going to pay you much. I said, well, anything will beat nothing. I said, how much you pay me, Mr. Field? He said, 15 cents an hour. Painted First Methodist Church up there. Well, I went on work because that's just $1.50 a day, you know. And if I'd been sitting here, I wouldn't have made anything. So I got dissatisfied, and I went back over there to the plant and told Mr. Field. I said, Mr. Field, you know, I'm not getting anywhere. I said, I live about 3 miles from this church here. And I said, time I go home for lunch, come back up here, I don't have much left. He said, how about 20 cents? I said, yes, all right, sir. So, oh, it was rough, I'm telling you the truth, brother.
But I was interested in why there was this great big strike when the people had been making not very much and working 60 hours, and then suddenly the WPA came along and they were making a lot more money for shorter hours, and yet there was a big strike. Why was that?
Well, they had what they call it, a wildcat strike here. Well, we didn't strike, but they struck down further down with lots of other mills, you know. And they was gonna close this mill down over here, you know. They, oh,
That one
they,
up yonder?
and the other one too. They own two mills. They come in there by the truck load, you know, women, children, and men, you know.
Roughly.
Yeah, oh, they're rough looking. And they decided over here, and I was working over here at that time, and they decided that the best, I guess, just go ahead and close the gate, you know, and not have too much trouble. And so they gave me a job at night. Now these fellas go around the fence, the big fence over here, on the outside. I'd go around it on the inside, you know, and see if they didn't do anything, you know. And I stayed over there, I don't know how long, but man, I'd making bread. A lot of them wasn't.
Yeah. How long did the strike last? How long did the mill stay closed?
You know, I don't remember all
Not
about
long.
that. Not too long, because they got that thing settled somewhere or another. I don't know how.
You remember the National Guard coming?
Well, no, we didn't have a National Guard. But we didn't, I don't know what it was. Anyhow, they got it settled somewhere or another. But anyhow, they lost out. They didn't win. Yeah.
We've got some pictures of the National Guards arresting these people who came in and taking them off to Fort McPherson. I just wondered if you saw that or recalled it at
No.
all.
One night I was a watchman over there, and they'd been locking the gate. They didn't have a chain on this gate over here. I could go in and out, you know. There's the fellas with the sticks and everything standing on the outside. And them fellas said the superintendent, he said, I want y'all to carry some cotton down here, several bales, the big gate down here, stack them out for it and get to that church out there, one little close there across the road. He said, don't let nobody put a chain on that. He said, we'll stand behind you. But I was afraid. I knew if we shot somebody, I don't know whether they're going to stay behind us or not, stand behind us.
Yeah.
So me and Uncle George Argo, old man, I was a young man, we had a shotgun. And we had a little hole about like that between the cotton. Well, after a while, the car drove up down there pretty close. Uncle George said, what we gonna do? What we gonna do? I was shaking. I didn't want to shoot anybody, but I would, I'd had to. I said, don't shoot, Uncle George. I said, don't shoot till they put the chain on the gate. I said, don't shoot, but if they start putting on the gate, we won't kill them, but we'll get rid of them. And they saw us, I guess, and they left. We didn't have any trouble with them much. But it was rough.
Did the local sheriff take part in all that?
Well, they deputized a lot of different people, you know. There's a bunch of them that deputized. Oh, there's a crowd of them over there toted shotguns and everything else. It looked rough, just a little.
Did you get deputized?
Well, I guess it did. I had 2 pistols and a shotgun.
I guess you did.
Yeah, I tell you, I've been through some rough times. I'm telling you too. That's one reason it don't take so much for me to live now. I didn't have anything, just something to eat. If
What
I-
about your brothers that you had to,
Huh?
your brothers? You had to look after them.
Oh yeah. Well, my father died right here. He's
Young man.
young man, 52 years old. My mother wasn't a real healthy woman, and I had 2 brothers that couldn't walk a step ever since I can remember. One of them was older than I, one younger.
Yeah.
And I pushed the wagon, carried them to school.
Oh, boy.
And Lewis, like 1 year graduating from high school, that's the oldest one, you know. And right here, and I bested, I guess, 12, 15 years right here. Had them boys crawling around on the floor. But they were smart. They had good sense. Had a store right down here. Now, this building out here was their store. It was across the road down there. See. Well, I just moved it up here, you know. And Lewis really did make good till this, we call it the Second Depression, came along and the mill closed down. He's selling on the credit to these people, see. And they just eat him out.
Sure.
And the people that owed him never did pay him. And
Yeah.
so that just ran that.
But that was the reason he couldn't move.
Sure.
Yeah, I told him I was going to reason I couldn't move. I had
Yeah.
those brothers here. But after I outlived him, I stayed with him. I tell you what, I felt like that I was put here for a purpose. 'cause I had a brother came here before I was born. We walked to about 6 years old, I think, New Graduate. But then after I was born, they had another one come along. And I figured that I was put here to look after them. And I looked after them till they both died. So did.
Was it, you never figured out what?
Well, doctors didn't know what it was. It's just, I don't know. The legs just didn't grow, and the body kept growing, see. Yeah. But they were smart. Lewis was county treasurer for 12 years, my older one.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's how he got the money to build this little store across the road down there. And he made good money. People stole from him, they robbed him, and they treated him rough. They sure did.
Yeah, they take advantage of it.
Yeah, took advantage of him.
Well, one thing that we're interested in is the way employees got selected. Do you recall anything about that?
You're talking about the county treasurer?
No, in the mills.
Oh no! What they did, a lot of times you had to know somebody, you had a friend, help you to get up, But if you made a good hand over there and had pretty good education, you get a second-hand job. We call it second-hand, then the foreman, then they went on up, But I never did do that. I told Mr. Nixon, now he was our last, I believe he's the last president we had. He came down here in a little old T-model Ford, didn't have a top on it. He was a young man, hadn't married, I don't think. I know he hadn't that time. And went to work in the plant, all in machinery around in there. And I was looking after the humidity system all over the plant at that time. And so I told the fellow one day, I was up here at the hospital, Humana Hospital. Mr. Nixon came along after he retired, and everything. He got to be president over both mills. This man did. And he come up and said, 2 or 3 fellas sitting there. He said, "Hello, Roy, how you getting along?" I called him Mr. Nixon, of course. I was old as he was, maybe older. "How you getting along?" I said, "I'm doing pretty good." I said, "Hey, y'all don't know this man here." But I said, the difference between me and him, he used this and I used this. I said, he got up there and I didn't. But that's the truth, don't I?
You didn't have the worries that they...
No, I didn't have a worry, and I didn't make the money.
Dead now.
They all did. But you know what? I always wanted to tell him, he was the man that let me come out of the mill and get in a machine shop where I could make more money. I asked him one day, I told you about asking the fellow if I could go to the shop. That was a man. He and his wife was up here at what we was eating that day up here?
Humana Hospital cafeteria,
No, we was up here at uptown up here.
Savannah.
We was eating Savannah Street. He and his wife came in and sat down over here at the table. Both of them was shaking pretty bad. I said, "Mr. Nixon," said, "Yeah." Said, "I want to tell you something." "All right, all right." I said, "I appreciate you doing for me what you did." I said, "If you hadn't put me in a machine shop, I'd have never made anything, amount to anything." And I said, "I stayed down there 12 years, long enough to know how to do machine work. I went to another place and I just about doubled my salary." So I just want to tell you, and I appreciate that.
I bet you did.
And then I went to work at Coal. Let me tell you what I got into after that. They didn't want me in there. I was a young fella. They was all old fella. They gave me a hard time. All but one man in there, Jake Smith. He said his toolbox right over that day. I went in, he come over there, he'd heard my name called through another fella. Well, he was my friend and my boss over here. And he come over and said, "Now, if you need any tools, you're welcome to get them out of my box." He was the only man in there that was friendly with me. He never tried to give me a hard time, not one time. He was always my friend. But after 15 years, we were all friends up there, I made friends with every one of them, and I liked every one of them. And he was in the nursing home up here one day. It was Jake Smith. I went in there and his wife standing over there. He couldn't talk. I said, "Jake," I went to see him pretty often. I said, "Jake, I want to tell you something." I said, "When I went to work at Coal shop," I said, "you're the only man." He couldn't talk. I had his hand. And I said, "I want to tell you now, That you're the only man up there that didn't try to give me a hard time, and I just want to tell you.
Yeah. Makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And
I-
he
I-
squeezed your hand.
Yeah, he squared my hand,
He
you know,
knew
tell me
what
that.
he was saying.
He couldn't talk, but see, I want him to know, you know, and I appreciate it.
One of the things that I've been interested in is how people in the factory and in the mills took the attitudes of people around. You know, some people talk about lint heads and that kind of thing. And did that affect you at all?
Well, no, it didn't. I tell you, way back years ago, we lived on the farm. And we had some people that worked in the mill over here. They didn't have no humidity, they didn't have nothing. You could tell one of them when you seen him, he yellow, had bad complexion, you know. They called him lint head, cotton mellers, you know. They wasn't too well thought of, it didn't look like. But that way after then, the air-conditioned mills, you know, and it's improved it every which way, you know. So now it's different to what it used to be.
Yeah.
And they pay good wages too in the mill now. They pay good wages. Yeah, you used to call them lint head.
We're going to be going up in South Carolina where we've arranged to make pictures in a mill that was operating in 34, and they've got records about how many people were employed and so forth and so on. And then it's all been fixed up now, you see.
Yeah.
And then we're going to make comparisons to show how things have changed.
Well, that's good.
Well, it's been a big improvement. Now, you take people working in the cotton mill, and it's good as anybody now. They dress good, they're making money, and
But
you
it hadn't
can.
always been that.
Hadn't always been that way now, but now it is now.
Now, you seem to have had more education than the average person in the mill, didn't you?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I guess so. I went through the 6th grade.
He took courses.
I
in,
took a night course.
textile mechanics
I was wondering.
and mathematics and different things.
Well, you didn't work in the mill, did you?
Yes, I worked in, I told Judy,
Yeah.
I worked at the other plant. I kept production reports. And at the end of the day, the pounds that had been
Oh, yeah, yeah.
run and everything like that, and kept the time sheet.
I tell you what, where I need my education, I went to night school, you know, son. I needed the math in the machine shop.
Yeah.
And up here at cold shop, see over here, they tell me, I want you to make so-and-so, I want you to make a gear. I've made gear for this mill up here and this mill here too, sometime 40 or 50 at a time, different kind of gear. I had a machine to make them, you know. And that didn't, it didn't require too much. But I had to go to night school over here. I had a place where we go to night school. Well, when I went to R.D. Cole, fella scared me to death. He said, I tell you now, says, you go to work up here, they're going to give you a blueprint, and boy, you better know how to read it. Don't you go be gone. Well, I said, I'm going to try it anyhow. And I had a good boss over there. He was good. I just couldn't read blueprints. You know, I never had studied it anything. I draw in either one. So I went to work, and my boss told me, said, I tell you what now, anything you don't understand, you come over here. That's what I'm for. Well, they give me a blueprint to make something. And I worked for 2 or 3 companies where it had to be in the thousands of an inch. It had to be in the thousands. I had a minus, a plus of 3,000 in different jobs I do, you know. I worked for DuPont and Hercules. You know, they take an order from them, you know. And I don't think in the 15 years I run the first job in the 15 years. But I tell you, I had to have some help.
Yeah.
My boss helped me, you know. He had one job up there one time. We had to work all night one night. I did, and they wouldn't leave you by yourself, you know, that big machinery running. Afraid you might get hurt, you know. He stayed with me. He said over there, I said, Preacher, what's it done about? Called him Preacher. He said, well, I'm thinking about that job, but we're going to have to make. And said, I don't know how we're going to do it. He said, I can't figure out how we're going to do it. Well, I knew I didn't know how. If he didn't, he's been there all his life. He worked in the tool room for years and years, and then he worked up to foreman. Well, I said, well, he told me a little bit of it. I said, I don't know whether you're going to do it that way or not, but I said, there's always a way. He said, well, I don't know how we're going to do it. And the 5 or 6 machinists in there been there just about all their life. I'd been working with them 2 years. So we was over at the drinking fountain one morning. Well, preacher, my boss already told me, he said, I like your work. I said, I like your work. And we were standing there, and he said, well, fellas, we got to start on this job, and I don't see how we're going to do it. I got to put somebody on this job, too, today. He looked over at me and said, I'm going to put you on it. And you going to put me on it, and all these fellas here have been working here all their lives, and I ain't been here but about 2 years. I said, yeah, I'm going to put you on it. One smart aleck said, well, you put the right one on it. Said, he's going to do it. I said, let me tell you one time. I said, Ford didn't make the first car run. He had to make several before he could get one. I said, I believe I can do it somewhere or another. And I worked on that thing for 6 months, I guess. And I fell off to nothing. I worked on day and night when I come home, you know. And you know, I made 30 or 35 or 40 parts. Some of them was that long. Some of them I could hold a dozen in my hand, little pieces, you know. I had to. And I told my boss one day, I said, I got them all made now. He said, there'll be a man down here now to inspect them. Wouldn't let nobody there inspect them. Well, here come a little fella through there with a little satchel, you know, and they went upstairs. They was going to put it together up there. They had a shell up there, and all this stuff went in the shell. I think it's a Sputnik, one the American made, you know. Yeah. I believe that's what it was. They're going to put all that stuff in that shell. Well, after a while, that little fella come back down there, and my boss come over there to grin by the way over here. Said, well, Roy said he passed up half of that stuff, and he wouldn't let him see the other half. I said, sure not? I said, no, he sure wouldn't. We'll let him see the half of it. He sure was pleased. He said, the only thing about it, I had some 1/8 inch aluminum tubing. Now that 1/8 hole in it, 1/8, had a little hole in it. And so I had to take 2 thousandths off of each side of this stuff, and it's that long. You know, you pick up a piece of aluminum, it'll bend. It had to be straight. And so the only way I could do it, they told me, said, anything in the world you need to do that job, just tell us what it is. I told them 2 or 3 different things. They went right on and got what I told them. And so I told them one day, I said, I tell you, they had this stuff in a roll, but it had to be straight, you know. I made me a thing there with a roll on it, you know. And to roll that stuff through there and pull it. Kick, but still do that. I told him one day, I said, preacher, I tell you one thing. If you'll get me some aluminum tubing straight to start with the right side hole.
Roll it against it,
And I said, I can do it. I can cut that off. 2 thousand off each piece. I had to put the mic on it too, see, you know, for the same thing. And so they got that. And what they did, Mr. Sheffield was a head man. Afraid that would get bent. He got a piece of stainless steel tubing to put them in. And when I had to put them in there, I said, preacher, they sent this stuff in a card box, little thing. I said, let's put them in there. He said, you don't know Mr. Bell. Said, he done bought this piece of stainless steel. He don't want to get bent. Well, that man up there, you know, he had on a pair of white gloves. My boss said, handling that, and he got some grease on it. And that's where that grease came from, see, out of that pipe. Sure what? But he made them clean every bit of it out, and they cleaned it up. Now, that was the first man went in there. Well, in a day or 2, here come another man down, see that. My boss said, there you go, to inspect the other for half. I said, well, I don't know. I said, I'm halfway through anyhow. He said, yeah. He come back down and said, my boss come over, I thought he was going to hug my neck, you know. He said, he passed up every piece of it. I said, sure enough? I said, yeah, he sure did.
Did you see the final bill that your company gave on that, you know what they charged for all of that?
I asked my boss, Mr. Cole, They bought a new lathe over there, engine lathe. Great old big thing, and out operating had a lot of knobs here, you know, and he came over and said, I wouldn't know which knob to pull. I said, I don't need it, I just pull one and see what it's going to do. He said, I said, I sure am glad that job went out of here the other day. He said, well, we didn't make anything on it. We just wanted to see if we could do a job like that. We said we didn't make anything. I bet they did.
Yeah.
I bet.
I bet they made some money.
That handmade stuff, oh, they charge for it. You know they did.
Yeah. No, sir, and I don't know what I was making. I asked the boss. I said, what's this thing I'm trying to make? He said, I don't know. I said, you don't know? He said, I wasn't supposed to know.
Did you remember when they started putting in the efficiency stuff in the mills, the picker counters and all that kind of stuff? Did you have anything to do with that?
I don't believe I do. I don't remember if I did.
He was probably in the shop and they didn't.
Yeah, they started putting counters on, you know, to measure the amount of work that was done.
Oh, I work by number. My job was number.
Oh, that was up yonder, not
Yeah, not over here, but up yonder cold.
And when did that go in?
Well, can't answer that. I just don't know.
It was pretty rough for a while.
But I worked by my number. My number's
He's still
272.
talking about the textile.
Huh?
He's still talking about the textile.
Oh, textile. You're talking about textile, not machine shop. I just don't know. I'm afraid I can't answer that because I don't remember much
Do you
about it.
remember any, there's something they call the Beto man.
Oh, yeah, Beto. Well, that's the man in that's followed people around and see if they're getting production that they were supposed to get, you know. Yeah, that's what they call a Beto. I know what you're talking about now.
Did you ever see them at work?
I've seen him around in the plant. He'd follow somebody around all day long.
Could you tell me about how it worked?
Well, only thing I know, most all of them in there worked by the piece. And he would stay with them to see, I guess, if they could improve the output or something, you know. He'd stay with them, walk around with his pencil, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, they call him the Beto man.
I'm looking for pictures of those guys, and I haven't been able to find them.
No, I don't know where you'd ever find them.
Now, some people have told me that that was one of the reasons for the strike, was that people were getting mad at the Beto man and getting mad at the Speedo. Do you think there's anything to that?
That was after the strike, wasn't it? When they had them down here.
I don't know. I tell you, that's been 30-something years
Well,
ago.
don't you know, Payton Vineyard and Skinny Garner's Ball and different ones were, they would go to school part of the time and come back and they would do that work. Don't you remember?
Yeah, I don't remember too much about it, I don't believe. But there's lots went on over there in this plant. I had some mighty hard jobs over there and I had some easy jobs.
But were there mill houses all around here?
Just
There's
like that
about
now.
there's about 200 or more down
There
here.
were.
Yeah, now. They're all back in here and across back over yonder. There's a lot of houses back this way. A lot of houses built like that and right yonder.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And some 3-room, that's 5-room house there. Now this house has been here, I expect 100 years, right? 75 or 100. Because I've been living right here.
Well, that paper said when the mill was built, wasn't it
1906.
something like that?
Yeah.
Be
So
about,
and they built the house at the same time.
about that same time, I think.
And how did they select the people?
Well, according to how bad they need them, if a man come along and they thought he'd make him a good hand, he'd just hire him and see if he could do the job. If he couldn't, they let him go, get
Now,
somebody else.
did they have to have a lot of people in the family working in order to get a house? Or?
Well, now that did help a lot. Now the reason I got this house right here is a lady, we live on across on the other side. There's a woman lives here, had 3 girls and 2 boys. And this was #1 place right here. And it's, for some reason, it's vacant for some reason. I don't know what you called it. And that woman wanted to let her have the house, see. Well, they built this village, we call it the new village, on up through here, and they give her first choice of any house she wanted. And she took one up on the hill, real nice place over there, and this became vacant right here, see. Well, when it did, my daddy went to church, my mother went to church, and my two brothers went to church. And we lived on the other side. And so, Mr. Wood, I believe Mr. Wood's wife, I believe that he was superintendent. Somehow or another, I don't know, they asked Mr. Wood if he give my daddy this place here, you know, where them boys could go to church outside.
Yeah.
And so they did, and that's why I'm here today, where the crippled boys could go to church outside.
No, I see. Oh, sure, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it works like that.
Well, did they watch people's drinking habits and all that kind of thing?
Oh, they
had
didn't have.
tattletales all over the place.
Yeah.
Oh, this place back then, I tell you, most everybody here was from Cayuga County, the Carroll County one, they're all farmers.
That's what I thought, yeah.
I would go to every house here maybe once a month and see what kind of fuse they had in the fuse box. It wasn't allowed but a 40.
Uh-huh.
A 40?
40 watt fuse, that's right.
I thought it was a 20.
Was either 20 or 40? Well, 40 is pretty small. Anyhow, these houses was wired with a 14 wire. You know, that's small.
Yeah.
And they
You're
didn't.
saying about the 60s, I'm sure, because I bet it was 15 or 20.
And so they didn't want them to have a hot water, didn't want them to have anything.
Hot plate.
Hot plate, stuff like that, see, because that wire wouldn't take it,
Sure,
see.
yeah.
And so, I know one house over here, they did overload it, and it burned all the insulation out of it. And then we went over there and rewired it and put number 12 in there. See, I got 12 in this house.
Well, it's interesting that, you know Alan Lomax, don't you?
Yeah.
This is a filmmaker, friend of mine, who was out in Mississippi working on this small farm place. And he needed some lights, and they only had a 15-amp fuse in it. The electrician put a penny.
Oh,
across it,
yeah.
you see?
Yeah, put a penny on it, they do it.
And they got the lights,
Yeah.
but then the penny fused there. And they went off and left it. Here I came about a year later. This is a famous musician, a country musician, you see. And he would hardly let me in the yard. He said, "You're going to put another penny in." we filmed with him. He finally agreed to do it because he liked the woman I was working with and all this kind of thing. But we never used any lights. You know what that'll do.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what I got into one time. I'd made a round checking all and I found a 30
Yeah,
in one.
yeah.
Had it with me. And I came to a house way over here on the back, last house over there, and this fellow that I knew had moved from the farm up here, you know, didn't have any lights. It's getting along about stopping time over here, too. He said, "I ain't got any lights and I can't get a fuse. I don't know what we're going to do tonight." I said, "Well, I'll tell you, I'm not supposed to do it, but I'll let you have this 30 if you'll take it out first thing in the morning." I said, "Will you take it out?" "Oh, yeah, you know it will." Well, next time they sent somebody else around and he caught that 30 over there where I left.
Yeah.
Left that Manhattan. They got me in the office. They just ate me up. I couldn't do anything, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They said, "We sent you around to see about this and you let a man have a 30.
How
And
come
you
you
know
didn't have
better."
a 20 in your pocket instead?
I didn't. I just had that 30. That's all I had. Oh, he ate me up, you know, and I told him I'm sorry. But that other fellow, he told him that I left it in there.
When did they put plumbing in the houses?
When did they put plumbing in the house? I don't know what year it was, but now, years ago, all we had was a hydrant right here at the back doorstep. That's all we had. Yes.
Those little outhouses.
Had little outhouses up and down back in his house out there. Yeah.
But now, am I right in saying that for a lot of people that was better housing than they had out in the country?
Oh yeah, it was better. It was better. It's better than what we had out there, 'cause we had that out in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was better.
Did people have room for gardens here?
Well,
I know
yeah,
you did, but most people didn't.
in some places, you know, it wouldn't do for gardening. Some folks wouldn't have one if they had an acre. They wouldn't have that, no. But I tell you, that was a pretty good place to live. I enjoyed it. I said a while ago, you know, I was raised up with nothing, and I could get by on just a little nothing, too. Oh, I liked it up here, and I sure did, and I'm still here. I'm 80, soon be 84, and I came up here when I was 18.
Well, that's pretty good proof.
Yeah, but I worked in LaGrange. I went down to LaGrange, worked the shop down there, so they got bad down here, you know.
Yeah.
Then I went to Linwell at Palmetto.
And you just commuted, you just traveled back and forth.
Oh, yeah. I worked at Palmetto, but the reason I didn't like it at Palmetto much, I had these two brothers. I'd have to, they went to work at 6 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
and worked till I could catch up in the shop. Well, before I left, I had a heater in here, you know, a cold heater. I'd get in cold for them, cook their breakfast, put it on the table, then I'd get to my job. Well, in the evening, I'd get off most of the time, then go and work at 6, about 2. I'd have a little time then, and I'd come home and start flooring this house. And I put every board in this house down. Every one of them by myself. I'd work till about 10 o'clock at night, then have to get up in time to get up to Palmetto up there by 8.
And then Lewis died.
And Lewis died.
And then
Edgar died.
Edgar died
Yeah,
several years later.
7 years later.
When were you people married?
34 years ago.
Oh. Oh, that's great. Well, we'd like to come by and talk with you with our cameras next week. We talked about something. We'll get you to tell my son, who's operating the camera, some of the same stories.
Well, I've enjoyed it, I sure have. You people don't seem like strangers. You don't seem like strangers.
Well, I hope not.
Is there only one color that people could paint their houses?
Pardon?
One color. Well, I guess these houses just look better white, but they started putting siding on
Yeah.
some of them.
I'm a little,
Different colors.
I'm pretty hard of hearing. I can hear, but I can't understand. You know, it seems like.
Okay.
Oh, you're doing great.
Yeah.
Other people in other mill villages told me that they could only have certain colors in the rooms on the inside.
Well, when they painted them themselves, they
They
did
did.
paint the whole house the same color.
Same color. Yeah.
Mostly tan or beige or something like that
And they did. They painted everything white.
on the outside.
Judy,
Yes.
we better get in.
Yes.
I'll stay on with it.
We'd like to, but we better move on, and we'll be back on Thursday, next Thursday.